Oh God, we just want to thank you for this is the day that you have made. You've brought us to this evening moment. You have seen us through this entire day, God, and we just want to praise you. The word says, from the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, your name and your name is worthy to be praised. So God, whether we had a bad day, whether traffic made us miserable or not, whether children got on our nerves or not, God, we thank you because you are a good and awesome God. We've come this evening, God, to be enriched, empowered, and enlightened. So, Father God, we thank you for opportunities like these to learn, to grow, to solidify our knowledge base, and cause us, Almighty God, that what we learn this evening, God, we can put into practice. So we thank you, God, for resource persons. We thank you for friends and partners of Calvary Moravian Church. But we thank you above and beyond all else, God, for your faithfulness to us. So into your hands we commit this evening, and we pray that whatever we say and do may be done to your honor and to your glory. And everybody say amen and amen. Before you say it, just turn to somebody, greet them, tell them good to see you here this evening. All right, just smile with somebody. Yeah, just greet someone. We are a family, and it's good to have you here tonight. You may be seated in the presence of Almighty God. It is my distinct privilege and pleasure to welcome one and all to the first in the More You Know lecture series. The Calvary Moravian Church, we're celebrating 190 years. Would you put your hands together for that? 190 years. And we got off to a fantastic start with Manna for Days. We are thankful to all those persons who supported the event. Indeed, we understand that it was a tremendous success, and we continue to look at, review that, and we are now into the next item, which is the lecture series. The concept of this lecture series is that we want to equip members with some practical knowledge. We have been looking, and I've been at so many forums where they continue to lament that we as black people, we seem to have some attitudes and beliefs about living this life in Jesus in the real world that we need to address. And one of them has to do with the understanding that 10% of zero is zero. And tithes and offerings don't always work, and we got to find ways to use our resources and to be better stewards of the gifts that God has given to us. So this is the first of three, which is the first part of the lecture series. The lecture series will take in so many dimensions, but we're going to start with the practical dimensions. So tonight we begin the lecture series looking at buying and selling property here in Barbados, and so we want to look at that tonight. Then the next lecture series on June 25th will look at wills and estate planning. We know that so many persons have misinformation, their concerns, and as we are a maturing society, it has become so vitally important that, as we say, we put our house in order. I know a lot of us read the Bible, and you would like to be Hezekiah, where you know for sure that God can give you 10 extra years, but no, come on, no church. We in church, but nobody knows the day nor the hour when our breath will leave our body. So we do need to plan and prepare. And just to let you know, when this flyer went up, a number of persons from outside the Moravian Church, pastors and colleagues, started to call me for resources and commended me for the initiative that we are doing. And then some of our members who are passionate about this said, Rev, we need to do one, that financial freedom one. We're going to do that in phases. And the first phase of that is planning your pension. We understand that we've been hearing a lot of stuff going on with NIS. A lot of people are getting scared and nervous that when they retire, would there be enough in the NIS fund? What else can we do outside of depending on NIS to help us? Some people say to me, but Rev, I only got 5 more years, and from all the advisors I've talked to, everybody say as long as you're alive and working, you still got time to do something. It may not be what you would like, but you can still do something. So we want everybody to come on out to the remainder of the series and to be blessed and to be encouraged. But this evening we begin with buying and selling property in Barbados. And our facilitator and presenter today, this evening, is Alexandria Thomas. She is an attorney at law with 10 years of experience working in general legal practice in Barbados and with specialized practice in employment and property law. She's a graduate of the University of the West Indies Cayfield campus, completed her professional training at the Norman Manley Law School in Jamaica, and she lives by the statement from Mahatma Gandhi, "Strength comes from the indomitable will." Living by this motto means that she strives to overcome challenges and seeks to advance beyond that which was thought possible. She's passionate about the development of youth and the growth of the society, and has volunteered her time to mentoring and missionary service. Her vision is that we as a society pave the way for a better future for those who are coming after. Ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, I want to invite you to put your hands together as our presenter will come. She will share, and then afterwards we will have our question and answer. Will you put your hands together for Alexandria Thomas, please?
All right, good. All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alexandria Thomas. I know that's a mouthful, so I usually just go by Alex. Feel free to refer to me as Alex. So as was said in the introduction, my practice is basically conveyancing, property, and I have a focus also in employment law. This afternoon, we're going to take a look at sales, buying and selling property in Barbados, and we're also going to look a little bit at mortgages, because I know a lot of us can't afford to pay for a property full out. We more than likely have to get financial assistance to do so. Now, I have, at the end of the presentation, a series where you can ask questions. If, however, there's something burning that you think that you may forget or you want to bring it up before, feel free to just interrupt me and I'll address you then. So our agenda for this afternoon is, am I ready to purchase property? Yes. We're looking at what does pre-approved mean? What is the sale and purchase process in Barbados? What are the costs associated with that? Then finally, we're going to look at what is a mortgage and what are the considerations that you need to have if you're going to enter into a mortgage. Now, the first big question that we have to answer, are you actually ready to purchase a property? Now, there are some important things that you really need to consider if you're looking at purchasing property in Barbados. And you have to first consider what is your income versus your expenditure. How much am I actually making? What is my salary? And I know what people usually look at their salary and they think that it's the gross salary. What is the total that I see on my pay slip? But really and truly, you're supposed to look at your net salary. After you take out all of the statutory deductions, if you make a pension payment, that has to come out as well. If you do insurance, all of those deductions have to come out first, and then you look at what your net salary is, and that determines your ability to purchase a particular property and what bracket of purchasing power you have. Now, we also need to consider what you actually spend your money on monthly. We have a grocery bill. Some of us have children. We have parents that we have to look after that may have medical expenses. We have to pay the gas bill. All of these things need to be considered to look at what your real income is, because more than likely the mortgage payment is going to take up at least 1/3 of your salary. So those are some considerations. Now, your financial commitments come in there as well. Do I already have a commitment to pay a car loan, for example? Do I have to pay school fees for my children every semester or once a year? Do I have a 14-year-old boy who needs to have shoes every other month because his foot grows? Those practical things are things that you need to consider when you're looking at your ability to purchase. I mentioned dependents. Dependents are not only your children. Dependents are parents that you have to take care of. There may be a sibling who has a medical problem that you have to make expenses for. Those things have to be considered. And one of the big ones is your down payment. There are some financial institutions in Barbados that offer 100% mortgages. Very limited, and I can only think of maybe 2 offhand, and I wouldn't really recommend them for getting loans. But more than likely, you're going to have to get a 95% mortgage or an 80 to 85% mortgage. It means, therefore, that you need to put a down payment of at least 10 to 20% down payment. So the consideration there is, do I have enough savings in the bank to make that down payment, to be able to fit the bill and the criteria to satisfy, to be able to have a mortgage? And then the things that we really don't consider necessarily that come after you purchase the house. So I bought the house, I have to pay a water bill, got to pay a light bill, got to pay a land tax. I might burst the water main driving in, so I got to pay for that. The roof might spring a leak, I have to pay for that. There's little maintenance things that you have to consider monthly that you don't take into account when you're buying it up front. But these are things that come out to your ordinary paycheck and you have to consider. So, you're thinking about purchasing property. You presume that because I made $4,000, I can afford a $300,000 house. But the question is, how much can you really be approved for? What is your bracket of purchase? And we call that pre-approval. So, you go into the financial institution, you sit with an officer, they look at your finances, your income, your expenses. You usually fill out a whole form outlining those things. And they say to you, you're only qualified for $250,000. You're only qualified for $450,000. That is what pre-approved means. It means that the bank assesses you and determines how much can you be approved for to purchase a property within Barbados. And if you are using a real estate agent, that is one of the principal things that they're going to ask you for. They're always going to say to you, you need to go into the bank, make sure you know how much you're approved for, so I know what my boundaries are looking for a property for you. Now within that purchase price, within the pre-approval amount, there are things that need to come out of that. So say I am pre-approved for $300,000. That's all well and good. But I'm not really approved for $300,000 because I have to consider legal fees. That have to come out of that. I have to consider the expenses that we talked about a few minutes ago. I have to consider maintenance costs, because if I buy a property that's not up to standard and I may have to redo the kitchen, I have to take that into account, right? If the plumbing is not too up to scratch, then there's a cost of repairs that I have to take into account. So I am approved for $350,000, but legal costs are $30,000. So technically I'm approved now for, I have a purchasing power of $220,000. But then I also have to remodel the kitchen, and the contractor tells me that's $50,000. So that's $320,000 now minus the $50,000. You follow where I'm going with this? So that's why it's important, before you even consider going and looking at the type of properties that may be on the market, you need to sit down, look at your finances, make these deductions, make an assessment, and see what your real purchasing power is. How much is it that you can actually afford to use to purchase a piece of property? Any questions thus far? Anything that pops up? No? So we've been diligent, and we have figured out we can afford X amount of dollars. this is how much we can use to purchase a property. We've done all that, the research that we needed to do, and we know exactly what that amount is. So now we are ready to start looking, look on the market, see what's there, see what's available for us to purchase. Now you have an option that you can use a real estate agent. That's part of what I do, other than being a lawyer, is doing real estate work. And you can use a real estate agent to try to use your parameters. Some people, for example, don't like St. Philip because they don't like centipedes and other critters, for example. Some people might not want to go all the way up to St. Lucie because they don't want to pay the gas bill for the car. Some people have criteria where their child goes to a particular school or they want to stay in a particular district. Those are the sort of things that would determine our criteria as real estate agents to be able to better find something that's suitable specifically for what you may want. Now, we'll go through the steps and stages of how you purchase property within Barbados. And I start by saying there's really no limitation on whether you're a national or non-national. Anybody can purchase property in Barbados. The only limitation would be that if you're a non-national, you need to get exchange control. That's permission granted by central bank. We do an application to central bank indicating where you reside, what your nationality is, what the price is, and a little bit about your background. They do some checks and they give approval for you to purchase. And that's really the only additional step that will be required for non-nationals. So you found this perfect property. It's within your price range, it's in the location that you want, it matches all the criteria that you have. What is your next step? The first thing you do is get that valuation. Because real estate agencies have a price, the owner has a price, land tax bill has a price, all of those things are well and good. But you need to go and get a valuation to see what the current, as at today's date, value of the property is, whether or not there are certain things that you should be aware of, and to determine whether or not there may be additional expenses that you have to incur, because the valuer should go through and check all these things, whether there may be additional expenses that you have to incur on the upkeep and maintenance of the property. And that's what the valuation is for. The second purpose of the valuation is that your bank will ask for it. If you're getting a loan, the bank is going to determine the amount that you can borrow based on the valuation for the property. They're not going to give you anything above what the valuation is, right? So you've gotten your valuation, you've taken that to the financial institution, and now you are making an offer to the owner. When we say an offer, it means that you're giving the owner an amount by which you're going to purchase the property. So they may have advertised it for $300,000, but when you got the valuation, maybe the area has depreciated a little bit, so the valuation is really about $280,000. You now have to make a determination, how much am I going to offer that owner for that property that may be attractive? There are two ways to go about that. You can offer less, maybe $270,000, because there are not many people looking at that particular property, so they might be willing to take the $270,000. Or you may offer a little above, because there are 10 other people that put in offers, but you really want that property. You might offer $285,000, $290,000, depending on how much money you may have. But that's what an offer is. You indicate to the owner, I am willing to pay this particular amount for the property. Now the other thing that you must get once the owner has accepted, before the owner has accepted, you need to go and do a walkthrough of the property. One, to make sure that you know where those landmarks are. So in the advertisement for the property, it may have said that it's 7,500 square feet. Now the plan might have been done 10 years ago. But since then, a neighbor came and he built a garage on, and it's about 5 feet encroaching. Now you would not know that until you go and walk the property, or you get a recent plot plan for that property which will show you any encroachments that are there. So it's very important that you go and make sure you do a walkthrough, see what the boundaries are, see what's on the property, we sometimes discover that there may be a well that you maybe have done years ago that nobody figured out, depending on the size of the property. These are reasons why you go and do a walkthrough and why you ask for a plot plan. Just to say here, and it was drawn to my attention that I should mention it as well, one of the other things that you must importantly do is, if you're purchasing a house, you find out how many years the house has been constructed. That is very important, because there's wear and tear that comes with properties. So the house may be in St. George, and it may have been constructed 20 years ago. Now, it's very unlikely that the sea reaches all the way into St. George, so that house would be in a very good, the house should be in a relatively good condition at 20 years. The roof more than likely doesn't have to be done, the electrical doesn't have to be done, you don't have to go and check burglar bars and whether they're rotten and all those sort of things. But say you are looking at a property in St. John, the sea goes all the way through that house. You need to go and make sure the electrical is up to standard. You need to go and check every single fixture in that house to make sure that it's working and it's proper. You need to make sure that the roof is in proper condition as well. You need to check for critters. So open the cupboard door and go down in the cupboard and look and rub your finger through and do some checks just to make sure. So in that case, you yourself might not be qualified necessarily to do all the checks that are required, but a contractor, if you engage them, can go through, go knocking on the wall, check the splits in the wall, check the roof, the electrical, all those things. And it's very important, especially when you're purchasing a house, that you make sure you have a contractor go through and do that check for you. Because you don't want that within the first year, there's a big expense that you now have to go and look at. Something as simple as foundation to a house can be very, very expensive. All right, so we've chosen the house and we've reached the stage of deciding that we are going to definitely purchase this property. So we're at the legal stage, which is stage 2. Yes. Now, ordinarily, a purchase of property, whether land or house in Barbados, is going to take 3 to 4 months. And I use that very cautiously. Ordinarily, it's going to take 3 to 4 months. If you are ever getting a mortgage, multiply this time by 2 or 3. Being very practical. Yes? If you're doing a cash purchase, guaranteed 3-4 months, clear, you're gone, you're good. If a mortgage company or any financial institution is involved, it's going to take some time. It's more like 6-7 months to complete. That's being very honest with you. All right? So just keep that time frame in your mind. One thing you must do is choose an attorney at law. You cannot purchase property in Barbados without having a lawyer. I know a lot of people don't like lawyers, but you have to have one to get property in Barbados. So your first step, pick an attorney at law, get a recommendation about somebody that you trust, and engage their services to purchase the property. When you go into your attorney, they're supposed to advise you on the costs associated. What this whole presentation I'm doing, they really should be going through this whole process with you, explaining what to expect, when they'll be contacting you, what timelines to look at, etc., and to give you a detailed outline of what your costs will be. So your attorney has completed that. You're clear on what the process is. Your first step is signing an agreement for sale. That agreement for sale outlines the identity of the spot where it's located, who the parties are, so the owner and the purchaser, the attorneys at law acting on behalf of both parties, the 10% that you're supposed to pay to retain interest in the property. It has the purchase price. It has the deadline by which the sale is supposed to be completed. So the timeline, if we sign an agreement for sale today, it would generally be dated 3 months from today's date. That would be the timeline that you have to complete. And then it has a bunch of other legal things in there regarding the plot plan, description, and a couple other things that will be included. And that's why you need your attorney, to make sure that everything that's in all the documents that you're signing are proper and correct. All right? So once you've signed your agreement for sale, you've handed over the 10% deposit to the vendor. That 10% is to be kept in escrow until the completion of the sale. So that 10% is just held on until you finish the sale. The next step that your attorney will do is to search title. Now that may sound a bit legal, but all it really means is title deeds are the documents that you receive indicating that you're the owner of the property. Before you actually get those title deeds, we need to check the full history of the property to ensure that it does not have any hindrances on transferring it to you. A hindrance could be the vendor had a mortgage that still exists. You can't transfer it as a mortgage. There may be a personal lien. Maybe they loan somebody a small amount of money and there's a lien against the property. There may be a judgment from a court against the property as well. We do checks to make sure that there are no liens that existing against the property. It is free and clear to be transferred to you. And one other thing we do is called requisitions. Requisitions ask the vendor to disclose anything that should be important to the purchaser. Something simple like mahogany trees on the property. There's a legislation called the Trees Preservation Act, which prohibits you from cutting down trees that are above a certain age. And that has implications for you constructing additional things on your property. Those are the sort of things that we ask. There may be a right-of-way over your land for, I don't know, maybe a right-of-way for water, yes. Some people's properties have gullies, for example, that they need to be aware of. There may be protected areas that you need to be aware of as well. You only find out those things when you requisition the attorney and they give details about that on the property. And step 9, depending on what is responded to. So for example, if the attorney indicates that the vendor had a mortgage, my response, for example, would be that we need to have a release from the bank indicating that the vendor paid all the debt, and then we can pass the property over to the purchaser. There was one question.
Good night, everyone. At step 8, if the person fails to disclose something important, what happens? Can you ask back for your money? Say they didn't tell you and you went through with the purchase and then you realize, wait, but this has a gully, or wait, this has X or Y. What happens in that case?
Okay. So there are 2 answers to the question that's posed. Remember, Remember, you have a responsibility as the purchaser to make sure that you do the checks of the land. So that's one part of it. That's why I indicated that there's certain things that you need to go and walk through, check, make sure before you even enter into an agreement for sale. But part of the agreement for sale, which is the second part of the answer, has in that there's certain descriptions, certain things that are supposed to be disclosed to you that can allow you to repudiate, which is to repudiate is to go back on and renege on, thank you, on the contract and allow you to get back your 10%. But it depends how serious that description is. So for example, the gully example that you gave just now, at the point in time where you signed the agreement for sale, you would have had the plot plan, which should have disclosed a gully. Part of your attorney's duty is to ask for a recent plot plan and to make sure that the land surveyor goes and does a check. So it's highly unlikely that that will be something that will now be discovered on a particular property. What may happen is that there may have been an encroachment, for example, during that period in time. You wouldn't complete the sale until the vendor sorts out the encroachment. So us as attorneys will indicate to the vendor, you need to make sure that the neighbor moves the fence. Or you need to make sure that the well is filled, for example, and make sure that it's sturdy enough that nothing will happen. So it depends on how serious it is and at what stage it occurs. Yeah. So my colleague just said we will also ask, well, each person actually, to get their land surveyor. So the purchaser must make sure that they're showing the boundary markers, but also remember I said you're supposed to have somebody that goes and checks these things for you. So along with having a contractor, get a land surveyor to go and check the land. One point I'll make here, I'll come to you. I always advise my clients, especially because I'm a real estate agent as well, go and get a site test done. So you would have a contractor who goes and digs your hole and does a test on the dirt that they find, as well as how far down you can find rock. Along with, if it's a house, you do that for the land as well. And that will alleviate some of the things you're popping up afterwards you're not knowing. Yes. The other side, the other side.
You were talking about checking that the land is clear. In cases where there is an encroachment that was so old that they might then deem it to be adverse possession and therefore they got to move the boundaries?
That can happen. That's true. There's two ways you can approach that. If the neighbor doesn't bring up adverse possession, you push it as far as you possibly can to get them move the encroachment. It is only when adverse possession is raised that you have a problem. So it might be 150 years old. It doesn't matter. Only when the person raises the issue of adverse possession will you then entertain them in that thought. Until then, push them to move the encroachment. If they do raise the issue, practicalities, if they do raise the issue of the adverse possession, then you may have to move the boundary markers. But that will be at the vendor to do before you complete the sale. So I wouldn't advise you to complete the sale with the encroachment because you're going to have a problem later on. So this will still be all at the vendor to have sorted out before the sale is completed. Yes.
Good night. I'm interested in the statement you made about the length of the coconut trees. How old the coconut trees have to be, or in terms of, oh, you said mahogany. Oh, I thought you said coconut. Oh, okay.
I don't think coconut trees will fall under the Preserved Tree Act. No, I don't think so.
Interestingly enough, I have some person interested in my property who is very interested in the coconut trees.
Okay.
Okay.
So they want them moved, or they're okay with them
No, they
staying?
want them.
Yeah, they can stay. Once they're comfortable with the tree, they can stay. Yeah, yeah.
Good night. On
Hi.
the question of the requisition, is the concept of the church and market statute still active? The church and market. Are you aware of that?
Sorry.
No?
I can take
Okay.
a note and look it up.
My understanding is that many years ago, there was a church and market statute which allowed passage over a plot of land.
Okay.
And the concept was that you were allowed to go to the market and you were going to go to church. So it was food for body and soul. I don't know if that is the origin of the issues that you have now regarding passage over land.
Like an easement?
Yes. I'm wondering if that, well, you said you don't know about it, but if it exists, that would be something that you should get in the requisition where you're told that, okay, there's a passage, there's a right of passage over this,
Right, okay.
over this property.
I'm not sure about the church part of it, but we have in the Conveyancing Act, it alludes to easements, which are right of way over land. And so those are one of the things that your requisition asks for, and it has to be disclosed. Yeah.
Hi, good night. Question, Alex. So I know you said that if you know you're going to make an offer, you advise doing a valuation prior. But in reality, though, having done a few purchases, sometimes that is not always possible until after you go through the, like for example, there was a property I was looking to buy that I bought, but they had 10 other offers. So it was like a grab for this particular property. And I didn't get to do the valuation until after. And then on another occasion, there was a time where I did get a valuation done on a piece of land, and then the bank did not take that. So another thing is making sure whoever financial institution you're going to, get their list of approved valuers, because there are some valuers that are legit, but they're not on their prescribed list, and you're out like maybe $900 to $1,500, which I could never get back tearfully on a valuation. So sometimes it's a matter of the time, especially if you're working with real estate agents, which, no offense, I'm one too, are annoying, and there's a time crunch process, and you're getting buzzes in your ear from them about completing the sale, getting to offer, whatever the case is. So some of the, like bringing a contractor to look at the property sometimes is not always possible until after that vendor decides to accept your offer. So I'm just wondering if there's wiggle around that sometimes.
So you're quite right. There's some real estate agents that hound you down because they want to get their percentage. Absolutely true. In relation to getting evaluation, there are some properties which meet the criteria everybody. So they got 20 offers, 30 offers on it, and the real estate agent is not going to entertain every single person. They're going to make the assessments and they're going to pick 2 and 3, and those are the person that can get priority. Always ask the land tax bill. Now the land tax bill always has a middle-ish range, lower end range, and you can kind of gauge from the land tax bill what the price will be. And usually, sadly, depending on the type of valuer that you go to, you will either get a higher valuation or a lower valuation, and it depends on the area as well. Look back at the land tax bill as your kind of reference point. If the real estate agent is not allowing you to go and have a contractor check out the property, that's a red flag. And do not make an offer on a property that you have not checked. I don't care how glorious it looks. Don't make an offer. There'll be something else out there better for you. But I wouldn't advise you to make an offer on a property you can't check. Yeah. Okay, we were at the stage of replying to the requisitions. And as was raised here, there'll be answers given along the lines of if there are any easements, rights away, if there are tenants on the property, and other things that you're supposed to know as a potential purchaser of the property. Then we get to the conveyance. That is what I refer to as your title deed. The most important document that you could ever receive is the conveyance. This conveyance really should be in a lockbox somewhere, puts it really, really, really good, or in the bank held properly for you. Your conveyance is your title to the property. If you ever lose it or it's damaged, the cost to get that replaced runs up to $15,000. Do not damage or lose your conveyance. You only get one. If anything happens to it, it's very expensive and very long process to go through. So when you get your conveyance, put it up. All right? So, yes.
If you had a transaction and the conveyance is with the lawyer, and the lawyer dies, what is your next step? I'm serious. I'm very serious.
Yeah, it happens all the time, and that's why I say you're going to need Kim. You're going to need somebody like Kim to go and get the conveyance for you. So what happens
So
when...
you cannot negotiate with the persons who have taken over the...
Yeah, absolutely.
The firm?
So practically what happens is, if an attorney dies and there's no junior attorney to undertake the distribution or the proper dealing with of the files, you're really supposed to go to the Bar Association, make a report that the attorney has these documents belonging to you, and they act on your behalf with the person's estate to try to get your documents. That's practically what you're supposed to do. So anytime an attorney dies and there's no secondary attorney handling the files, you go to the Bar Association and they work it out for you.
Only if there's no secondary person.
There are many attorneys who run the practice solo. They don't have any other associates with them.
Now, in this case, the person has a firm.
Has a firm? Oh, but then you can go directly to the firm. But if like 4 or 5 months pass and you're not getting a response, go to the Bar Association.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I got a little scared when you said negotiate. Those are your documents. And if anything, first of all, why do they have your conveyance? Let's start there. The other thing is that when you go for your documents and anything has happened to them, they have to pay for the restoration process. That's their expense. Because once an attorney has their documents, they're to be held in a safe place. And really and truly, the only reason an attorney will have your documents is if they're exercising a lien, as if you owe them money. But all documents should really be in your possession. Or a bank will hold your documents because that is what they do until you finish pay off your mortgage. So really there should be no reason why we should have your title deeds at all.
Let me say also, I don't know where this came from, but a lot of older persons, and I use older in quotation, don't take offense to me using older. There are lots of older persons who somehow leave their documents with the attorney. And I do not understand why the attorney has your documents. They are yours. Why does the lawyer have them in the office? And I, as an attorney, I'm very scared when I have anybody's original document because anything happens to them, I have to come out of pocket to replace them. Collect your documents from your lawyer and put it in a safe place. If you have a lock box at a bank, use that. If you have one at home, maybe a safe, put them in there. But the lawyer should not have your documents unless, as Kim said, there's a lien that he's exercising over the property. All right? So you sign the conveyance and the relevant forms that allow the property to be changed into your name. Should that stage is completed, is signed by the vendor and the purchaser. You've made sure that all the water arrears are cleared, electricity is cleared, land tax is cleared, any liens have been extinguished and released, and therefore the entire property is cleared of all debts. It can now be handed over to you. You get your title deeds, you put them up, you collect them from the attorney, and they're recorded, and everything is sorted. That's the end of the sale. The only reason that you should be pulling back out your title deeds is if you are now getting a mortgage. Now, if a mortgage was involved because you had to get financial aid to purchase the property, you will never see your title deed. The attorney will hand them over directly to the bank. But that's the only circumstance where you physically will not have your title deed. You will know that you used Barbados Public Workers, and therefore Barbados Public Workers is holding the title deeds. You have a 30-year mortgage. The next time you'll see your title deeds is in 30 years, right? Now, the biggest part of this whole thing are the costs associated. I don't want nobody to have a heart attack in here, but these costs are a lot. Yes? So, we'll start with the vendor first. The vendor obviously has the land tax bill to clear before the property is transferred. There is property transfer tax, which is 2.5% of the purchase price. There is your stamp duty, and that is 1%. Let me go back to the property transfer tax. I forgot this part. If you have a house on it, you get an exemption of $150,000. So if the property is $250,000, you deduct $150,000. The 2.5 is payable on the difference, which should be $100,000. So if you have a house, you pay less property transfer tax. If it's just land, you pay on the full amount. All right? And then, as I was saying, stamp duty is 1%. So in total, you're paying about 3.5% to the government to transfer the property. Now, the purchaser, they pay for the search on title. Remember I said that the attorney at law needs to go and check and make sure there are no liens or anything against your property. So you pay that. You pay your per page registration with land registry. So if your title deed document has 12 pages, you pay per page for the land registry to record it, plus an additional page, because there's a cover page that they have to include. So you pay them for recording as well. Then you pay the clerical fee, because obviously the attorney themselves don't go down to the land registry and record them. We pay a clerk to do that. So you have to pay the clerk. And then you pay your portion of the land tax bill. So land tax runs from April 1st to March 31st of the following year. Depending on what point of the year you purchase the land, you pay your portion for that year. So if I purchase land in December, I will pay from December to March. The vendor will pay from April to December. You only pay the portion that's assigned to you. And then the biggest one, legal fees. The vendor, there is a schedule that is set out by law. We do not have a choice on the fees that we charge you, except that we charge you more than what's here. So there's a legislation from 1976, I think it is, 1970 something. It is very, very old, but it sets out the minimum fees that we charge you. And this is the criteria here. The vendor up to $25,750, on the net $75,000, 2%, and this is compounded. So we add it all together based on the purchase price, and that's the minimum. Let me reiterate, the minimum that we can charge you. So given that this was the minimum in 1976, we charge you more than what this is. Yes? Yeah.
I would also like to add here, and I will declare my bias in attorney fees. Attorneys have mortgages too.
Yes, please.
Attorneys have bills.
Children.
I own part of a law office, so I can tell you this. So when they give you their fee, pay, please. And one other thing too, we have no problem putting a lien on your property and holding your papers until our bills are paid.
Amen.
Thank you.
Let me say this as well, and I appreciate that. Let me say this as well. We as attorneys, we don't try to poke out your eye with fees. We are supposed to be as reasonable as possible given the market. So that's why I was saying the fees that are here are the minimum from 1976. And obviously the market has evolved since then. So we're supposed to charge you what the average is relative to the purchase price that you have. And that's why you choose the attorney that you go to. I wouldn't advise it, but you can shop attorneys, shop. Caution, say shop. You go and you speak to Kim, you speak to myself. Generally, we will be giving you the same cost. Obviously, if you go to an attorney who has been in practice for several years, he may be a KC or whatever, their fees are going to be a little different. But obviously, you're paying for the quality of service that you get, the years and the experience that the attorney may have. So that's why it's up to you to pick the attorney that you may want. Now, I'm not necessarily going to go into registered land, but just to mention it, there are properties, for example, in Christchurch, certain parts of St. Michael as well, and certain parts of St. James that are called registered land, meaning that the government has gone through and mapped all those properties already, and the land registry is the one who holds the title deeds for those properties. So you won't get physical documents necessarily except a certificate to indicate that you're the owner of those properties. But that really only applies to certain parts of Christchurch, St. Michael, and St. James, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So mortgages. A mortgage, simply put, is an interest over the property that you own, because there's an obligation that you are going to pay a certain amount of money to somebody who has loaned you financing to be able to obtain that property. And we call it a deed of charge. That's the legal term for it, a deed of charge. Sure.
Just before you go to mortgage, I had a question where you're purchasing a house that is occupied, and is there any challenges when you're going through the exercise that you can't get this person evicted?
That's a really good question. So, principally, you're supposed to have vacant possession. It means that when you're purchasing a property, they're supposed to be handed over to you clear of any person occupying the property. Now, some of these properties obviously will be tenanted. And so the obligation of the vendor is to make sure that the person leaves the property before the completion of the sale. If that does not happen, there's a process, as you mentioned, eviction. Now, unfortunately, we live in 166 square miles called Barbados. An eviction application takes forever to do. And so that is something you really should find out before you even sign an agreement for sale, to make sure that the vendor evicts and gets the person out of the property, because an eviction application can take you more than a year to get settled, to get somebody out if they don't want to leave. And the issue with that is trying to get a court date, actually being heard, the judge giving the person time, and then them actually leaving the property. It takes a while. So that's a very valid question. Yeah. Right, so as I mentioned before, once there's a deed of charge or a mortgage over the property, you're prohibited from transferring it. So if you have a property and your mortgage is with Barbados Public Workers, for example, the only way you can transfer that over to somebody else is making sure that the bank, which is Public Workers, gives you a release indicating that you've paid off the debt. And so it's very important that you keep checking your mortgage. And if you're thinking about selling your property, you notify the bank so they can give you your statement of how much your balance is, so you know how much you have to clear. The mortgage process, we kind of went through this at the beginning, where I was explaining your preparation in purchasing property. You go and meet with an officer and make sure that you're well aware of what your loan amount is, how much you're approved to purchase a property for. You submit all your relevant documents. Now, these relevant documents would be your income, whether that is you're self-employed or you're employed by somebody who's carrying your pay slips. If you have additional income, so if you have a job on evenings, on weekends, or whatever the case may be that can supplement your income, you submit that information as well. You need to submit the identity of the property, whether that be land tax bill, copy of the title deed of the person, or the plot plan. They may ask for those things. They're going to ask you for your expenses, whatever your expenses for the month or year may be. And they're going to ask you if you have any other financial commitments, any other loans that you need to take into consideration. All of those things the bank are going to go through, and they're going to use that information to assess how much you can be approved for. After you've actually gotten an approval, the bank has said, yes, you're qualified to purchase any particular property at this amount. Once you confirm that this is the property you're going to purchase, they issue something called a commitment letter. The commitment letter outlines how many years your loan is going to be, what your loan payment will be monthly, how it's going to be divided. So usually your loan payment would have your property insurance, a savings component, and then your actual payment towards the loan plus the interest. So that's what your commitment letter will have, and it will also have how you're going to pay. So if you're going to pay on the 25th day of each month, if you're going to pay maybe on the 1st, depending on how your pay rate works with your employer. It has the terms and conditions attached to your mortgage or lien, and then it has your interest rate, 4%, 5%, 6%, whatever the case may be. That commitment letter sets the precedent for your actual mortgage. So you need to make sure that you read that, be aware of all the terms and conditions that will attach to your mortgage, because that is what is going to be reflected in the actual deed of charge document. And then mortgage process is really simple, but takes the longest. You get the draft mortgage, it's read through by your attorney. They go through all the terms and conditions, defaults, payments, and the ability of the mortgage company to recover the land if you don't pay, under what circumstances. All those things will be outlined in your mortgage document. You sign the mortgage document and it's recorded. Now, this is an additional fee. So on top of all the costs that I just outlined to you, if you're a purchaser, there's a second set of legal fees and costs, quite similar to what I explained before, that you need to pay for. Now, you have to pay for the recording. Let me go back. You have to pay for the recording of the mortgage. If any of you have ever seen a mortgage is at minimum 25 pages, possibly 30 pages. Remember, you pay $4 per page. If it's back and front, you still pay per page, right? So your payment for the mortgage could run you $400 easy per page registration. You still pay the clerical fee because the bank is going to charge you for doing their work and yours as well. So you got to pay twice. So you pay their clerical fee for recording it. And then you pay the legal fees. Now, the bank acts on your behalf as well as their behalf. Yes? So you pay the bank's legal fees and you pay your own legal fees. So if you're getting a loan, you pay 3 legal fees. The bank's and then your purchaser fees plus the mortgage fees. So that's 3 legal fees. And that's why I started by saying, make sure when you're approved for an amount, you make all those deductions first, because what ends up happening is that you might be approved for $350,000, but the expenses work out to $60,000. So if the purchase price is $350,000, your shortfall is $60,000 that you have to come up with to actually complete the sale. So I always tell people, take out 10 to 20% of the purchase price value. Make sure you have it in savings, or you ask for that loan on top of what your purchase would be. So if your purchase is $350,000, ask for $400 and change, so that you can cover all the expenses that come with that. So your legal fees for the mortgage, I get mixed up all the time. The mortgagee is the bank, correct? So you are the mortgagor, and these are the legal fees here. Once again, these are the minimum fees, so the bank can also charge above this. $25,000, you pay $750, $75,000, 1.5, $100,000, 1%, and thereafter 3/8%. That is compounded. And then the mortgagee, which is the bank, theirs is a bit higher. It's $1,000, then 2%, 1.5%, and then 5/8, all compounded. So you pay both of those fees when you are getting financial assistance. Any questions there on the mortgage? Yeah.
Is there any advantage to both parties using the same lawyer? Apart from that, the transaction might go through faster?
I don't know if the transaction may go through faster. Let me caution against using the same attorney. The purpose of getting your own attorney is to make sure that they check the documents for your benefit. An attorney who's working on behalf of each person is not able to split their mind necessarily to make sure that what they're looking at benefits that person, and then what they're looking at benefits the other person. You want to make sure that you have your own lawyer who's checking things in your own interests, wholly and solely. So you may cut legal fees a little bit, maybe, because the attorney's still going to charge you twice. They're still going to charge you twice. And they may give you a little discount, but the detriment might be to you. It's better to have an attorney wholly for your own interests, solely for your own interests. Yeah.
Question. Does couples need a special contract between themselves when they're going for a mortgage?
They're married?
Let's assume that they are not. Give me both scenarios.
Okay. Remember, in Barbados, we have married and union other than marriage, which is basically you're married. Yeah, a common law spouse. So if you're together for 5 years continuously, then you're a common law spouse. You're entitled the same way as a married couple would be. So if you're married, the legislation would apply to you regardless of what arrangement you made personally. It makes no difference. The law would apply as it would apply. If you're not married, then there can be an arrangement made. However, if any one of the parties makes contribution towards the payment of that mortgage, then they have an interest. So regardless of any agreement that you may have originally come up with, if any party financially contributes, then they have an interest in the property. So that's why I said it depends. It depends. Sorry?
does the contribution have to be recorded
When you say recorded, explain what you mean.
in somewhere in black and white?
Well, when you make a payment, you get a receipt.
No, what I'm saying is I've heard of instances where people are living together,
Yes.
married or otherwise, and one person, everything is in their name, and the other person is making contributions.
Yes.
But when there comes to be a split now, there's a discrepancy and a big row about who should get what belongs
Oh,
to
okay.
who.
Yeah, that will always happen, even if it's recorded. Even if I show that I was paying $1,100 directly from my salary to the mortgage, there will always be an argument. Remember too with family law, and we're getting a little bit into family now, contribution is not solely financial. So if I'm a stay-at-home mother, I have the same rights as a working mother. If I take care of your mother, so my spouse's mother or my partner's mother, that's a contribution. If I come home early on evenings to make sure that the house is taken care of and I only pay the light bill, that's a contribution. Or anything that you do in the relationship really and truly is considered a contribution. Anything that even if I give you an idea and you take the idea and go and make financial benefit from it, I have contributed to your income. And that has a value attached to it. So it doesn't have to be necessarily recorded. Yeah. So I'm just going to do this last slide and then we can have it wide open for any other questions that you may have. And unfortunately, my last slide are more expenses. I'm sorry, but yeah, more expenses. So we said you have the clerical fee, you have the stamp duty. Stamp duty is also payable on the mortgage as well as your conveyance. You have to pay 1% stamp duty on the mortgage. You have to register the charge. And then additionally, you have to have life insurance. So you can't get a mortgage without having life insurance. You have to have home insurance. So remember those additional costs about maintenance and upkeep of the house. Every year, you have to pay house insurance on the property. And then, as I said, if you do not ask for the full sum of the loan, including all the expenses, you will have an overdraft, and you have to go and ask a family member or otherwise, or get an additional loan to cover the additional expenses that you may have. So that's the entire process from considering buying, purchasing property, all the way up to the end of the mortgage itself.
And indemnity,
Yes.
that insurance, that you gotta pay that premium one time.
Yes.
They don't care how you cough it up, but you can't ever pay
gotta pull it.
in installments. That's a couple $1,000s one time. That is
Yep.
something that's I guess when you have a good lawyer who tells you, but then when the actuality of paying it, it hurts you.
Yes, very much so.
But one thing though with the mortgage, some financial institutions will allow you to opt out of paying your life insurance to the mortgage.
Yes.
You should still have it because you don't want to short your partner if you go in with somebody if something happens to you. But you can't opt out and don't give them the actual policy. But you should still have it.
100%, 100%. One thing I would say there too is that I know a lot of people that had life insurance policies before. So you had an independent policy that you were just working with all along. And you get a mortgage and somehow you decide that you're going to attach that life insurance policy to the mortgage. I would caution against that, really and truly. I would suggest that you get an insurance policy specifically for the mortgage. Don't use any existing policy that you had developed cash value on before. Just get an independent insurance policy for the mortgage.
One
second.
What's the difference between having the insurance policy, using your insurance policy, and having a separate policy for insurance policy for the property?
Okay. So, life insurance policy covers you being alive and able to generate monthly income to pay your loan. Property insurance covers the existence, damage, accident, or otherwise of the property itself. So both of those you have to get. Now what I was speaking about is There are persons who have existing life insurance policies that develop cash value over time. You're not able to use the cash value if you attach it to the mortgage. It will just sit there and languish. But you can get a specific life insurance policy that you simply pay the minimum just for the purposes of satisfying the requirement for the mortgage of having an insurance policy, so that if you pass, then the payment will be made to cover the loan, the difference. Okay, all right, no problem.
No, I heard you, but I want to find out, could you do a combination? Could you combine your life and then top it up with additional insurance if you have that?
Yes, you can. You can.
Okay.
But then you will still only be using one policy to cover the both.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm listening to you all night, and every other slide is about the fees, and, you know.
Yeah.
So I imagine those who are thinking of it probably have then to weigh the benefits of, do I go with a mortgage or do I just rent for the rest of my life? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, this one you're asking my personal opinion, because that's not really a legal opinion one way or the other. My personal opinion is you should always have equity. And when you're renting, you don't have equity. You're literally paying into somebody else's equity. And I think for us, we really should invest in ourselves. Mm-hmm. So even if you get a property, it may not be a large sum, it might not be a big house, but you can say it's yours, and nobody's coming and put you out unless you default on your mortgage. Mm-hmm. And even if you default on your mortgage, you have equity in it, meaning that there's a percentage of it that you actually own. Mm-hmm. So even if the mortgage company comes and takes it up, if you were paying for 10 years, there's a percentage of that property that you own that is equivalent to money that you must get back. Mm-hmm. When you're renting, that doesn't happen. So I would still advise to get your own property. It doesn't have to be lavish and big, but you have something to call your own.
Mm-hmm. And then the other question I wanted, or comment, when you actually get a mortgage, and let's say you're going for $300,000, and your mortgage is probably going to stretch anywhere between 15 to 25 years. So I guess age is important when you're going for a mortgage. But at the end of that period, you have paid up. Yes, the initial is $300,000. So you are running well over $400,000, you know, that you have paid.
Yes.
When it comes to getting a valuation, is that valuation based on what would have been the base, that $300,000 you went to the bank for, or the $450,000 you end up paying for that property?
Yes. So neither. Absolutely neither of the two. A valuation is determined based on the location, the area, the quality of the house, the length of time of the construction of the house, and other factors in the area. It has absolutely nothing to do with how much you paid for it, how much you were loaned for it, how much you invested in it. Really and truly, all the fixtures you could put in your house may not even add a single cent to your house. It depends on the area, the location, and a couple other things that would determine how much your property is value. But really and truly, what you put into it doesn't add any value at all. It's just for you to look pretty, sadly. Yeah.
No, it's interesting that Margaret talked about the renting forever, because on the other day we were having this discussion, because when you listen to everything, you listen to people talk about mortgages and what you have to do to get and so on, and obviously the price values have gone up so much that it makes you wonder, how are my kids going to be able to afford to buy a property? And then a lot of the young people these days are looking at a lot of different ways of investing, and it's not even anything to think about getting. If they're getting a property, is they're looking at it as a investment situation or whatever. But my other thing I'm thinking as well, because I do a lot of walking and hiking and stuff, and there's so many abandoned properties in Barbados. I mean, enough. And it's one of the most unlikely places that you would think to see a house. Huh? And when you sit down and I listen to, all that you say, so I said to myself, maybe the reason that a lot of these properties are abandoned and stuff is because when they look at what you have to do to clear them, get them, and even the families who would have inherited, when they look at what they have to do in order to get rid of or keep or whatever, it really is a real deterrent, and a lot of them are just sitting down. I mean, just sitting down there because of, I think a lot of the illegal issues. But the other thing is, because I have like friends who live in the States, yeah? And when you talk about the things that we have to go through here in terms of acquiring property and so on, they said to me, but we don't have to do all that. There are a lot of things that you can do personally to carry it to a stage, to get it to a stage then where then you can even execute the... But here I find that we have to involve lawyers so much, and the lawyer thing takes forever. Because right now I'm trying to get letters of administration, and you know what the lawyer is saying to me? Right now the court is backed up, and there's an administration request from 2022, and this is now 2024. I mean, hello, when am I gonna, you understand what I'm saying? So it's a lot of craziness as well, and I think a lot of it has to do with education, because a lot of people don't know what it is and what they're entitled to. So I guess that's why I think that this is a very good opportunity, because a lot of people don't know their rights, what they can do, what they're allowed to do and stuff like that.
That's correct. Let me start from the first point that you made. I don't think it is... All right, let me qualify what I'm saying. You are correct that properties are quite expensive in Barbados, but that only applies to certain areas. And I think the problem is a lot of Barbadians want St. George, St. Michael, St. James, and Christchurch, forgetting that there's St. John, St. Joseph, St. Andrew, St. Lucie, etc. And those properties are almost half the cost, but nobody wants to drive it to St. John. Nobody wants to drive... Even if I mention St. Thomas, which is literally Warren's, nobody wants it.
Lawrence is literally country. I mean, more than 40 plus years ago, Lawrence was literally country. I mean, when my father moved out there, I used to be quarreling every day. Well, when my father came in the Hickey to live, because it literally was the Hickey. Because, I mean, there was cane fields on either side of that road. The road was dark, there were no street lights, nothing. But, I mean, Warriors now has developed in a way that it takes me now, since 10 to 15 minutes to get out of my gap onto the highway. Because one, I guess nobody has our privileges, but what I was about to say when you talked about people not wanting to go to St. Lucie and those places, well, with the new program of the million and whatever, I think that you may soon see a shift in that, because a lot of the roads, I mean, the other day I was driving, I couldn't believe, and sometimes what happens is you turn up on roads, you do not even realize that these roads have been fixed. And you're like, oh, so now, your car is no longer shackling out. So maybe that was the objective, one of the legacies they're hoping to, where you will get, the roads are now a lot better. So hopefully people will want to live in these other areas. So.
Alex, you did a very good job in your presentation, but part of it is bordering on my area specialty, and I thought I might like to share it with the group. That is when you are going to purchase a property, that you can do your own property investigation. And there are 7 areas that you should really be thinking about when you do the walkthrough that Alex was talking about. Okay. And again, as she said, this walkthrough is not necessarily to find out what it costs, but what counter offer you will be giving the person who is selling the property. And the 7 areas that one should look at: the site, the structure, the roof, windows and doors, finishes including painting and tiling, services including plumbing and electrical, and landscaping, which is your grounds. Let's take the site. When you decide that you want to go and look for some place to live, the aim is to find a little location that is either flat, and if it is sloping, use the high part of the ground. Don't choose a lot that got the road drainage well right in front of your property, because you're looking in to get in flood every time it rains. If their site plot are two lots back to back, use the high level one, because if you use the low level one, when it rains, the water from the next person gets to drain down onto yours, and it will take some effort for them to construct a retaining wall to keep the water on their property, as my brother-in-law has found out recently. Structure, one should engage a structural engineer, but you as a layperson can look at telltales and help yourself to determine whether you will bring in an engineer or otherwise. Cracks in the wall. If the crack in the wall is a horizontal crack, then more than likely you got foundation problems. If the crack is at the corner of the house and it looks like a step, then more than likely they got a soft spot in the corner and the building settled there and caused that part to sink while the other part remains firm. Again, these are things that your engineer will highlight. But if you see it and it looks really dangerous, then you will know, well, either forget this property or decide, okay, I can pay to get repair, and I remove the purchase price by X amount. The roof. The roof has two elements, the waterproofing element and the structural element. As a layperson, you can't do very much on the structure, but you can look at the waterproofing. So when you walk around, just check for leaks. And you check for leaks by seeing water stains on the people's ceiling. You know? So that will be able to determine whether you need to do a deduction for resheeting this particular house. Doors and windows. Don't be afraid to open and close windows. That will tell you whether the hinges are falling off or whether the latch that's supposed to be keeping it in place actually working. Same thing for doors. When you close the door and it rake the floor, you got a problem. Either the tiles come up and thing, or that the door droop. If you have a timber door, just check around where the seams are and see if those seams are opening, because then again, it's just that the door is deteriorating and falling apart. You've got to change that in a hurry. So you put that in your budget as to something to look at. Painting. Painting is something that you should just look and you see blisters. If you see a blister, then you know, well, something happening there that is damp, and you will need to look to determine whether you will get the house repainted or not repainted. Tiling. When you're doing inspection, just get a stick and walk around with it. Okay? Because it's then that you find that one faulty. And that you can do for yourself. You can determine whether or not you're going to know price for replacing all the tiles and reduce the price by that amount. Finishes. Services. Plumbing. When you go in a house, just hold the toilet bowl and give a good little shake and see if it's shaking or not shaking. If it's shaking, you know that a plumber got to come in to fix that. That you can soon get sewer gases coming into the place. The same thing for the wash hand basin. If it's not a vanity, and it's a separate thing, just hold it and see if it will shake. Same thing for the faucet itself or the tap. Open the tap. If the tap moving when you trying to open it, you know where you gotta call the plumber. And these are things that you put in your punch list or your snag list. And when you're doing these things, take a lot of photographs. Don't be afraid to use your camera. Electricity. The present householder uses so many electrical gadgets that the days when you go in a house and you go on the main panel and you see the biggest breakers are 40 amp, today they ain't seeing nothing. So if you say 40 amp and you're interested in the house, you right away you tell yourself, I got to rewire this house. As Alex was saying, depending on age, it will, tell you, well, yeah, make an application to rewire the house. Landscaping and your grounds. When you walk around the grounds, you look generally at how the person has manicured the place, whether it's well kept or not well kept. And then you see an area that the grass green and pretty. That's a telltale for you that you got a leak. And that means that you got to come now and get your plumber to excavate there and look for the leak. So these are simple things that you as a prospective buyer should be able to just do the initial inspection and then call in the experts if you think it needs a case where you now need further investigation. Thank you.
All right, we have a couple more questions I think we can squeeze in.
Okay, I have a question. It seems to me that the mortgagee is at the mercy of lawyers, with all respect. The mortgager, is at the mercy of attorneys or the agents or whatever. And I'm just wondering, should the contract include some kind of penalty to be paid to the mortgager if you don't come through as you should and within the time that you should come through? Because it just seems that everything falls back. That person or persons who waiting to get into a house or to get things progressed, go sit down and wait months and months and months. That time they're still paying rent somewhere else. So I just wonder if there's some,
You want to, you can let my answer. But I agree with you 100%. But remember that the mortgagee is a financial institution. That is never going to happen. Ever. They're not going to fork out any money. That lawyers make the rules. But remember, no, the lawyer doesn't get involved until after the bank has completed their process. We've only had about 4 instances of attorneys taking money. Don't let it 4 or 5 speak for the rest of us, please. Please. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Good night, Alex. Thank you for an excellent presentation. You made a comment with regards to why you should perhaps get a mortgage and have property because you end up with equity in it. But how easy is it to get that equity out when you need it? For example, if you develop a medical condition and you need to go into like a nursing home and you need to pay for that.
Right, the equity can be used 2 ways. If you want to cash out fully on the equity, obviously you have to sell the property. That's going to take forever. The other option could be that you can get a further advance on your loan. So the more equity you have, the more possibility there is that you can get a further advance. So if you pay it off 10 years, I mean, that's a significant portion of your mortgage. You may be able to re-up on the amount that you may need for a medical program or otherwise. So that's how the equity may be able to work to your benefit. But you would then have to go back to the same financial institution for it to work quicker, because if you pick a new financial institution, we start in this whole process all over again. Yeah.
Question here.
So my question then, if you want to advance whatever equity you have, it might make sense to not position yourself to fully pay off then and leverage.
Oh, I learned that the hard way.
No, I'm just asking, like to leverage. I've heard a banker say this, pay up to
5%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then leverage it. But the thing about Barbadians, if you have the thing about ownership and not owing anybody, and not getting comfortable with debt, and I think that's something that we have to relearn, because so I used to live in Canada and I have friends who own properties there now, and I have a friend whose house she bought for 400 and something thousand Canadian. Her house is now valued at 1.8 million. However, to buy a property in her same neighborhood, she's going to need 2 million. So they're just refinancing at a certain point to cover school for children, to renovate the house. So their whole thing in different countries that are at a certain level of development that we in Barbados are now getting to is understanding how to leverage debt and understanding how to leverage equity. I said, well, your debt, insurance policies will take care of your debt when you're dead. That's how you can see it, and that's how some people see it, but I think it's getting comfy with that. So is it good to have that opinion that you won't ever fully pay it off, but you will leverage what you put in?
100%. And I'll take it from the point that, 200%. You made
Just break it down again, because I heard, and I think some people heard it when you were saying pay up to 5%.
So I'll clarify what I meant.
Clarify what you mean where you said that.
So the point that you were making is that a lot of Bajans really just want to pay off. They want to get rid of it. I don't like that. I want to be free. Cool, let me just pay this off. From the time you pay off your mortgage, you have to start fresh. We do this whole thing all over again. Anytime you still have a little bit left on your mortgage or loan or otherwise, you're able to get a re-advancement, which is what I was saying to you just now. From the time you pay off, you have to start over completely and fresh. So my advice would be that you pay up to a 5% balance. So leave 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 debt remaining on your property. So that if you ever need an advancement, you simply go to the bank and say, I need $50,000. They issue you a further, we call it a further deed of charge, which is way simpler. Just draft your document, sign and go. Now doing this whole process that I just explained to you all over again. So especially if you're older, Lord, especially if you're 50, 55, 60, the bank will not give you any more money. And the interest rate is going to be 7, 8, 9% to repay in a very short space of time. You can keep the terms that you had and simply get a re-up on the amount that you asked for.
Is that different from this concept I'm hearing called reverse mortgage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's different than a reverse mortgage.
That's different.
So is the reverse mortgage concept available in Barbados, and is that the same thing that has the... No.
I don't know any financial institution
that's doing it.
Mortgage.
Yeah. Okay.
I know that's an American concept, but I don't know of any. I've never seen a document or seen it happen, to be quite honest. I've never encountered it in practice. But I know it as an American concept. I don't know if that's reached here as yet. I'm not sure.
One question. So we'll take the questions because it's interesting.
Yeah.
One last question. If you are living in a neighborhood and a development comes into the neighborhood, an upscale development started near to the neighborhood, does that push up the price of the properties in the neighborhood?
Yes. So remember I was saying that what determines the value is the surroundings. So if a development comes and into that neighborhood, the price of your property is going to get astronomical. Regardless of how your property actually looks, what is around the property determines the value of the property itself. Yeah.
Then, before this one,
sure.
There are some properties we hear something about a covenant. Could you speak to that in terms of, is that something that as a buyer one should let a lawyer vet? What are the extremes you've seen in Barbados in terms of covenants?
Okay. I'll start by saying there are many older properties that do not have covenants. And if they do have covenants, they're very, very minute covenants. Like don't have chickens, for example. Simple things like that. We don't mind those ones. Anything that was built within the last 8 to 10 years, the conveyance has like 3 pages of covenants. And basically a covenant is a restriction on your ability to use the property how you would desire to use it. So something recent like Coverley would be the easiest development to refer to. They have covenants. You must paint the house a certain color. You can't have certain tiles in the house. The outside is only supposed to have certain pavement, stones. You can't use your property for anything other than 4 occupants. And like a plethora of other things. Covenants prohibit you from dealing with your land in the way that you would want it to. So, a lot of younger persons my age that have families and stuff, they want a already done house. They're more than likely going to go in development. The development will 100% have covenants that you have to abide by. And those are the things that you'll get answers to in your requisitions. They will send you the full list of the covenants and tell you this is how you are supposed to abide. The older properties, more than likely in the St. George area, St. Philip area, they would have covenants, but they would be covenants that would have been dated back to plantation eras. So they would be, for example, they would say that the servants' quarters is only supposed to be a certain distance from the house. Like that covenant can't be enforced, so you don't have to worry about it. Or you can't have livestock on the property. I mean, keeping sheep and cows and everything else, those sort of things. So the older the property and the further away it is from the development, the more likelihood you have freedom to do whatever you will. If you buy any development, you have to abide by the covenants, and the persons that live in these developments will enforce those covenants. They will carry you to court to enforce them. 100% will do, because they want to keep the quality of the neighborhood that they have. Yeah. So.
All right. Hi, good night.
Hi.
I just wanted to address where you said just now that you can at least owe the financial institution at least a 5%. But what happens then to my my documents, because the financial institution still owns my house then? And anything happens to me then, my kids have to go through a whole to get those documents from them.
The kids had to do it anyhow. And I don't mean to be frank with it, but remember there was a mention here about letters of administration.
Yeah.
Whether you have your title deeds or the bank has your title deeds, the kids still have to do letters of administration. So
If I don't have a will, if I have a will,
if they have a will, they have to do probate. It's the same application.
So
it's just as long.
Yeah, but for me, I personally, I'm happy to pay off my mortgage. I just
So if you're comfortable paying off your mortgage,
I know that.
Sure, it's not a problem, but that means therefore it depends on you and what your preference is. If you are comfortable paying off your mortgage, it's not a problem. There are some persons who can foresee that they might have a medical emergency and they don't have the liquid cash to cover it. It's easier if you just keep a little bit there. But if you have the wherewithal that you want to clear it, some people even transfer their property to their kids to get away from going through that administration. It all depends on what you prefer to do.
Is that where the deed of gift comes in, or?
Yeah, you can use a deed of gift, or you can do a conveyance. But let me not mention that part. But you can convey to your kids.
But because I'm going to ask you another question, just quickly. So you have the deed of gift, you have the conveyance. What's the difference? Because some lawyers try to go. I don't think it's the price. There's something else, though.
I was trying. So I'll answer. A deed of gift is a root of title that is really not considered proper. A deed of gift means that I am giving you a particular property without there having been any consideration, payment, or whatsoever, and that's frowned upon. It is allowed, but it's frowned upon. So if you go to the frowned upon, it's not considered frowned upon. So if you go to a bank and you receive, say my mother gifted me a piece of land, and the only document I have is the deed of gift. the bank is more than likely going to look at it and question it because it's not considered good root of title. Root of title shows the history of the property and how it was transferred. A deed of gift is not really considered good root of title. It is a cheaper version, but it's going to cost you in the end. A conveyance would be the preference. There's a way to do the conveyance which would not cost so much in a circumstance where you're trying to gift it to somebody. But let's not go there.
Hi, good evening. It's not actually a question. It's congratulations on the great presentation. And also an encouragement for the fact that I'm looking at the age group of the people in here, and I was rather looking for a younger age group, because they're the ones that need to be in here. We, the older folks, okay, in support of what you are trying to say and trying to encourage, need to be buying property in Barbados and land in Barbados so that we have a gift down to the next generation, passing it on, generational wealth, which we as black people, black Bajans, haven't been encouraged to do. So I'm great on your presentation, okay? And I feel that we need to be investing in the property, and that indeed invest back in our children who are the future. And by doing that, we then give them a link to what they should actually be living for, and may pull them away from the lifestyles that some of them are getting involved in. Because if they haven't got something to look forward to, something to work for, something to actually own and have, then it's easy to go and buy the fancy shirts, the gold earrings. We've only got to watch the West Indies cricket team and see them with the gold chains around their necks and the earrings. Right? That's what they're aspiring to. So the next generation seeing that is aspiring to that, when they should be aspiring to owning land and owning property, and indeed maybe holding back the 5% so you can remortgage and buy another property and another property and another property. And that's the idea of holding back on the 5%. So I understand totally what you're saying. My only thing is that there's not enough young people in there for us to be encouraging and to be feeding it down. So well done to yourself, and well done to Pastor Adrian.
All right, see a couple more hands. We'll take the questions that you have. Please use this opportunity. Ask
A question and a comment. So what I'm hearing is the recommendation that we should, let me see if I'm hearing it correctly, that we should not attempt to accelerate the payment of our mortgage. Is that what I'm hearing? So to pay it down quickly?
That's definitely not what I said. Work towards paying off your mortgage as quickly as possible.
Right.
What I caution by saying is paying it completely off. Okay. If it is, as he's saying, you want to reinvest, say you want to purchase another property, do not pay fully off.
Right.
But absolutely, if you have additional that you can pay monthly or make lump sum payments, by all means, have at it, because the interest rate is on the balance. Yes. So the quicker you can pay, the better. But I'm saying there may be opportunities for you to use the funds otherwise. And instead of paying over the legal fees and all the associated costs, you pay up to the 5% and you can ask for additional sum of money to reinvest however you may want to.
Okay. Yeah. And just to say that I agree with what the brother was saying just now, we don't seem to put a lot of value on property. So when Jackie talked about on her walks and seeing all of these properties that have gone to ruins and all of that, but I can tell what he's saying though, that there are other groups of people here in this country that understanding the value of property, and they are building up home and business below, and they're taking over a number of those properties. But we have not been, socialized or educated into understanding what the value could be.
The persons you're referring to have a concept where they buy not individually. So if we are in a church together, assembly together, a family together, the 6 of us are going to put together funds and we're going to buy the property. We're going to rent or lease or whatever the case may be, generate further income, use that as a further investment, buy another one, and we keep going. For Barbadians, it's an individualistic type thing. We don't trust each person. So I'm going to go and look for property for myself, struggle to pay the mortgage. Instead of looking for a larger property, where the two of us build two houses, the mortgage is the same, the mortgage amount is the same. My mortgage payment would now be halved because the two of us are paying it. But we don't trust each other enough to do that, and I don't understand why.
That's not everybody though, because
true.
Because I am a living example of grouping together and collectively using your purchasing power to obtain, especially property that may be out of reach in certain areas that you only know a certain type to live in. And so many years ago, now I'm in my 40s, and I told my mom about 20 years ago, my generation is going to have a collective thinking to own something. Her generation built the foundation that her parents would have built, and so we have to do something differently. So any younger folks on the call listening to this, I am not a financial expert, but I think I ain't do too bad for somebody that come from two working class parents and grandparents that were laborers. What I would suggest is invest in a life insurance policy from early that has cash value. I took out a couple where I had no responsibilities, aka a husband, house, whatever, that's take everything from your money every month, right? Before you had those things, right? Responsibilities and bills. Invest in a life insurance policy. When you're young and healthy and have no issues, you could get it real quick and easy. Even if you get your parents to pay the little premium for you before you get a full-time job, it's $75. That's what my premium was. And you take out a large amount, because at that time you're healthy and not asking too much questions. And actually doing that allowed me to, because I know if I put it on money, you can touch it. Because you tell yourself, I can save it, or if I take it and put it back. You don't get to put it back. You got to put it in places where you can't touch it. Investing that early and young allowed me to have the down payments for 2. And then you cash out and split it across. And encourage your siblings. So this is my sister here, so I had to pull her along. So whatever I did, she did. And you have a similar thinking. You have to find people, it may not be always your sister or a family person, but your energy will attract like-minded people. But this is the time where Barbados is becoming more expensive, and we have to get away from money. If you own, I would rather own 2% of $1 million than 1% and 100% of nothing. So I would encourage young people to have an insurance policy that's more attainable. If you are able to invest in stock outside, I was lucky enough to do so. You can build your portfolio. Get a financial planner. Get one that owns things, not some of these ones that are online telling you things. Make sure you check the background history, that they got assets. You know what I mean? That they got things to show. Because everybody is some financial expert and ranking. I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from somebody that owns things, investing, so you can check your background. So when you get somebody that's legit, that at a level that you want to get at, that's what I would suggest. Younger people, black people, please. We have to stop being each other's enemies. We have to grow together. I couldn't get what I get by myself. And you own part of something that is bigger. And so I would suggest saving. A credit union lady taught me $50 a month from my PayPal used to go in a credit union account. That carried me far and wide. $50. To this day, I still do that. An insurance policy, and if you are able to invest in stock, I sadly invested in Sagicor stock and I'm paying for it. But anyway, that was still a trade, and I learned from that and invested in something different. So you have to learn the stock market here, and I was able to get outside and invest in other things. So you have to read, you have to talk to people. Obtaining property is possible. It doesn't have to be a house with land and property. It could be a condo. Barbados is a beautiful place for condo rentals. You could invest that early in one. Even if you have to do it with 5 other people, you still own something together, and then you leverage your interest to then get something else. We have to come to that reality and get accustomed and embrace some sort of debt and put in trust in one another. That's my go-to for today.
Right. I think Kim has a final, yeah.
I wanted to say two things from every sense. I wanted to respond to, and I co-sign my sister's sentiments. I want to respond to Sister Jackie's comment about the abandoned houses. It is also a lot of bad estate planning. And whilst letters of administration take long, a lot of it is because we don't have a lot of written history. So you will be living somewhere for over 50 years. You don't know your grandmother's name. You don't know when she died. And you were there for over 100 years. So yes, there are a lot of abandoned properties, but I can also tell you that a lot of it is not because they couldn't maintain it. It's because you can't find the owner. You can't find death certificates. You can't find birth certificates. So you don't go anywhere with it. And the next process, then the next step for that is land title proceedings. Alex, you see how her face went? All right. So land title proceedings, now they're trying to help ease the backlog, but it takes a while because guess what? It is based on affidavits, evidence. And then by the time, like for me, when I started one, my deponents died. So how is the court going to cross-examine? Or if an objection comes, how are they going to then dispose of their discretion or their duty as the court? Because when you make a decision, that sets the precedent for others to come. I just held a matter for Alex the other day, and what happened? Everybody come forward now. Oh, we find this, we find that. Oh, that ain't his, he didn't live in there. So a lot of it is a lack of written history. A lot of it is that persons from that baby boomer time and before, they don't talk. So they sit on the information and they don't say, well, look, all right, Mary and Tom and whomever used to live here, and these are the deeds, and this is how we got the property. A lot of older people come to me, because y'all know I love an estate. A lot of people come to me and they be like, I made the will, but don't tell nobody nothing. How that helping me? So how your family can know that you have a will, or you got 10 policies put on, you got $40,000 put this way, because you think they can kill you? No, it's not going to happen. Nobody wants you to put on your pajamas. You have to estate plan like a business person. From the time you turn 18 and 21, you should be thinking about planning ahead. How am I going? What is going to happen when I close my eyes? Because we used to think that you die when you're old. Oh, no. A lot of persons are passing earlier. We have a lot of health conditions. Life is harder, so it's taking us out even earlier. God forbid it. I know, but I just got to say this here. Because when I hear, I want us to understand that it's more to just, okay, the house is abandoned, but there are lots of legal issues. And yes, the court takes long, but sometimes the court cannot match what they have to kind of dispose of the matter. So that is one. The other thing is that, yes, I hear you, and I think the rest usurp my point that I was going to come to you about why we should go ahead and still jump in the river deep, even though it seems really hard when you break it down to the numbers, dollars and cents. The other thing that I was going to say to you is that attorneys stay long because sometimes you find nuances. And I see my friend there from Central Bank, and she would tell you that sometimes you can't find documents. Sometimes all the attorneys, you look in a box. Oh, I was working with this boy. Them dead. No, I know what that is. We have to do a lot of digging. We have to. Every conveyance has a different nuance that we are not going to tell you about. We are going to try to solve it. So between the three attorneys, which would be the purchaser's attorney, vendor's attorney, and the mortgagee, because when we involve you, you can go, oh God, it's taking forever, this is the worst, y'all are horrible, I am County Bar Association. So we tend to try to deal with it internally. It's going to take a lot longer. A lot of it is on the attorneys to communicate sometimes to you and say, well, look, we have a delay. This is how we're going to deal with it. Don't worry about it. Just reassurance, because we're humans at the end of the day in a very stressful process. And that's why there must be a human approach to this process. So it takes long, I understand. And when you have a mortgagee that does not care about your timelines, they're going to go through all of their processes. First Caribbean, it got to go to Jamaica, it got to go to Halifax, it got to go to Timbuktu for risk to assess and make sure that they are, when they lend you this money, you can afford it. And every bank takes a different approach. First Caribbean takes the human approach. First Citizens is how much you making when the month come? All right, good, you could pay me. Public workers is come all, but I can take really long because I ain't sure if you could afford it, but how much you could save any month comes so that I could reinvest your savings. Everybody takes a different approach. So I just want you to consider that. Don't cuss the attorneys all the way. Sometimes we are saving you from a lot of stress and drafting carefully to make sure that you are good when you go to sell that property within 15 years. So I just wanted to make those couple points.
All right. So you have one more final comment coming from Sister Jackie, and then we'll close. Push the clip up.
In terms of communication, because that's very important, because a lot of times you're sitting down waiting for your lawyer, and unless you say, got to pick up the phone and ask a question, so communication is important. But the sister who talked about the insurance policies, because that was one of the things I was going to talk about, because it's the younger persons who can get the insurance policies much easier. So, I mean, you know, it's good to, as you say, take the insurance policy from early, because when you get to a certain, even not even a certain age, because, I mean, in your 30s and stuff nowadays, you come in with NCDs and all kinds of stuff, and the insurance companies are putting a lot of things now on the policies in terms of how you can acquire a policy. So whereas years ago you could easily have gotten an insurance policy, it's now really difficult, in inverted commas, because sometimes for the simplest reasons they will tell you you can't have one, you know. So what you're saying is true, and then in terms of, you know, getting together as groups, I keep saying that is something that we need to at least push with our younger siblings and younger nieces and nephews and so on, because, you know, and at least they're open to the discussion. So at least, you know, that's a step. So more of these and getting more young people out.
All right. Wow, this has been an amazing night. Would you put your hands together for Alex? We want to really, did you learn something tonight? Did you learn something tonight? All right, good, wonderful. I'm going to invite the chairman of our Board of Stewards, Sister Margaret Howard, to make a presentation at this time. Then we'll just advise you of the what's next, and then we'll close with prayer. Over to you, Sister Margaret.
So I have to present this to you, Alex, so please come forward. But I want to say a really big thank you for, notwithstanding that we have all those fees and all that kind of stuff, is some of the necessary evils. And I can tell you, if you stood there and you want to get there and you kept looking at all these fees, you ain't gonna go nowhere, you know. So notwithstanding all of that and what the recommendation is versus rent and all of that, I understand that clearly. I thank God though that I passed that one with with the mortgages, fees and all. So, but I just want to say a really big thank you for coming and sharing all your knowledge. As my brother over there said, it's unfortunate that we don't have more young people here, but I think we have enough older people that can do some imparting to the others, and I hope that we will pass that on. So any young people that close to me, listen out and hear more from me. So just on behalf of the church here, the members and the whole pastoral team, thank you so much, and I would like you to accept this small gift in appreciation for your being here and being able to generate such discussion. We learned a lot. We learned a lot. Yes? So thank you ever so much. Thank you.
All right. So we have some persons online, so I don't think I welcomed them when we started, but to all the online persons, welcome, thank you for tuning in. To everybody, so we stream tonight, so this is on YouTube. If you know somebody that you wanted to hear this, know that you've heard it yourself, go on our Facebook, our YouTube page, share it, copy the URL, send it, just get it out. We want you to get this to as many people as possible. I want to take this opportunity because this vision was ignited by someone who continues to hold my hand as I have ideas and thoughts, and she's always willing to hear my ideas and thoughts. But I need you to put your hands together for Sister Kimberly, please. I truly thank God for her in my life, in my ministry, and so she has helped me to craft this, and what we are rolling out is you know, just a heart passion that we have for what we want to see happen with the church. So the question that people may have now is, what's next? The next one is wills and estate planning. We believe that this is vitally important. So you buy the property, you have the property, you know, you need to account for it and make sure that you do what's necessary to pass it on. Amen? So we are inviting you back here on June 25th. What's the date? What's the date? And the time is 6:30 p.m. What's the time? Right, so we're coming back here June 25th. We're going to be looking at wills and estate planning. Again, come with your questions, come with your queries. But can I also ask you to bring along a friend? I really hope that we understand that this is just as important as coming to church a Sunday morning to hear a sermon. I really want you to be equipped and empowered. And then, as I said, we're going to finalize the date of the third one. I do have some persons, resource persons, that have just called me, jump on board. They say, Reverend Smith, this is really good stuff. So we want to join in and be a part of the impartation. So we're going to finalize the third one. The third one will probably be early July before you go on your vacations and travel and so on. So just give me a couple of days and I'll send that out to you. But really want to thank you for coming. Would you please stand as we just go to God in prayer? Again, Alex, we thank you. And as we go to God in prayer, I want you to take a moment and just lift up this wonderful woman of God. She has committed herself to sharing knowledge, to impartation, to allowing God to use her and the gifts and the training and the education that she has. So, Father God, we thank you for Alex tonight. We thank you for all that she would have given to us, the honesty, the openness, the guidance, the direction. We pray your blessing upon her business, upon what she's doing. God, bless her 100-fold for all that she has imparted to us. Continue to exalt her name. Let it be called in spaces that she does not even know about, God, because her gift will make room for her, God. Continue to bless her, her entire family. Lord, we thank you for all that we have heard tonight. God, I pray that we will not just hear this knowledge, but it has already ignited next steps in us. That, God, we will take the necessary steps to impart and to use this knowledge that we have tonight. Take us now to our homes in peace and safety. Cover us under the blood. Protect us from every accident and incident, harm and danger. And Lord, if it be your sovereign will, awaken us to a new day, ready to go again, trusting in your grace and mercy. And together we all say, may the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the love of God, the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all now and forevermore. Amen. God bless you, everybody. See you back on the 25th of June.